Who's this Jimmy Lewis? Who are you talking about? Jimmy Witherspoon?
Nobody knew who he was.
Lewis.
Jimmy. Who's this Jimmy?
Lewis.
Jimmy. Who's this Jimmy?
Jimmy
Lewis.
Lewis.
Who's this Jimmy?
Lewis.
Who's this Jimmy?
Just kept on going.
Live from Pahrump, Nevada, the Valley of the Dirt People, it's Tech Talk, Taco Tuesday, with your hosts, Jimmy Lewis and Logan Tyler.
Okay. What day is it? It's Tuesday. That means I'm doing the show, but I've finally figured it out. I'm going to do a better job with this show. I'm going to have AI do the whole show. That's right. AI is I'm just going to let it look at me for a second, and then I'm just going to take off, and then AI do the whole show. It'll be much better. So welcome to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, everybody. My name is Jimmy Lewis. This show is the best thing that you can watch on the internet right now, allegedly, or you're listening to it while you're driving or something like that. Anyways, brought to you by Yamaha. Yamaha makes... I haven't been riding my Yamahas, and it's pissing me off. I want to go ride my WR250, but I want to get a big bore kit on it, like Cody Webb did, and I wanted to talk to him, so we might talk to him next week. You never know. He said he was driving. Wasn't able to do it. So, Mikey Burton, let's go Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. He's going to rip the backyard for a little while. Well, Mike, you should come over here and co-host this thing. There's an empty seat. I got these empty seats, like, right there. And I can put a co-host in those seats, and it's real easy. Your job, I had some like 13-year-old kid co-host this thing for a couple years, and your job to co-host, you just when I pick up something to drink, like this seltzer water, I pick up this and I start going like this because I have a drinking problem. I go like this, and then you talk. And then you read the questions and stuff like that, which we have some questions. We have somebody sent in a lot of questions. And this is what we do in the show. We ask and answer the questions that you bring in. So we're going to go straight to that. Again, wouldn't be possible without the help of, hey, it's not on my end. I've got this thing locked down, Michael Leach-Lar Jr. Oh, wait, you're talking about your bike, not my program, because this program gets kind of locked up. So I'm going to answer all the questions. So today is Tech Talk Taco Tequila Tuesday, but I'll use the emergency camera. It's going to be whiskey tonight. This Addictivo whiskey is going to be the go-to for tonight. Like I have been polishing things off, so as you can see here, it's a low tide situation in there, and I'll probably be able to take care of that by the end of this show. Because this show does drive me to drinking, and that's what we like to say. And Michael also went for a ride on the 2014 Husaberg TE 250, and he launched the bike out from, and then it just brakes for a second, under me on a rocky slope. I got it restarted, but shortly after the engine just bogged out and a little less than 50% throttle. I got it refired and did again. Then I got it started, but it almost bogged out unless it was high RPM. Okay, so just from what you're telling me, when you loop the bike out, you did something to it. And here's the things. You knock something loose in the carburetor that's causing the carburetor to plug, or the pilot jet to plug, or venting issues with the carburetor, or the carburetor lost all of its fuel when it was upside down, and now the float is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's not getting gas. I don't know. It could be a million things. You could have pinched the vent line, but that usually takes a little while. But it only runs at high RPM. I've actually seen people loop the bike out from underneath them and plug their muffler with dirt, and then wonder why it didn't run. So lots of possibilities there. Give me some more information. I can probably help. Fat Yokel, tell me the best dirt bike to buy for my local dirt racing track. Go. That sounds like AI. Like a really dumb AI asking a really dumb question. Yamaha YZ125. Ha, I won. Let's see. And Fat Yokel says they're seriously in the market. Fat Yokel, you keep commenting like that. You're going to help my algorithms. And then the AIs really like people like you too. So I actually wish I could go on your YouTube channel and watch your podcast and ask some dumb questions, because you can't decide between a 250, a 450 race bike, or a dual sport. I think at least you can spell. Let's see. Michael Lettner Jr. tells me again, it wasn't a stuck power valve. I put in a new plug. It seems to have a good spark. Cleaned the carb twice. Even put it in the ultrasonic. So you're saying that it's reeds are good now, won't start all, good compression, not locked up, still won't start. And man, you are hitting the comment thing. Yeah, we can do whiskey, Mike. We can do everything. So let me go back to that original question. I got what Mike was asking. Launch the bike under me on a rocky upslope. I don't know. So the engine bogged out. So does the crash have anything to do with what the bike is doing now? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. I like answering two questions at the same time. So, Michael, get back to me. Actually, don't hit return a bunch of times, because you scroll your ass right off the comments, and then I have to, adjust some things and can't see it. And Fat Yokel, yeah, a YZ125, exactly. I'm not kidding you. You said, what was your question? Again, your question disappeared. The best dirt bike to buy for my local dirt racing track. Okay, so you said track and you said racing, and so I said motocross is what came to my head. And yeah, I have a YZ125. That's my track bike. That's my track bike. Go Yamaha. Blue Crew. Go visit your Yamaha dealer. Click through one of the banner ads on Dirt Bike Test. Do us a favor, click through those ads, because I actually see that you're going through there. Scroll down, find the one that says YZ125, go do that. We probably have tests of YZ125 up on the site. The YZ125 hasn't changed for a while, so you can find out how good it is. They've making it forever. Yes, they don't. It's not like they make a YZ125. They stop making it. They keep doing that. So, anyways, I'm glad you love Yamaha. We all love Yamaha. Everybody else, welcome to the show. What do we have on store tonight? I have a whole bunch of questions that one person submitted. This guy, he loved the show. It's Chris Needle. I think that's his name. And is that the same name as the other guy? I have to check because I can't remember names very much. Chris Neidel. That's really weird. I don't know if they're the same person or not. Maybe I screwed something up. I think. So where did Todd come from? Oh, it's a different question. Okay. So Chris Neidel. Do you misspell your name in your own email? Or do I just can't read? Okay, I'm going to answer the question. Hey, in the chat, you guys slow down a little bit because I can't keep up. I'm going to get back to your, don't worry, Michael, I'll get back to your thing, that it was running fine. Okay, his Husaberg, he crashes Husaberg, and all of a sudden starts running like crap. Could there be a chance that you smashed a wire? Which, a whole nother real interesting story. Like last week we talked about that Beta 390 that took a crap on us, and we couldn't figure it out. We were playing with it, and it did a lot of different things. And I said he probably hit so hard when he hit what he hit that maybe it smashed some wires or did some wires thing. Interestingly enough, we looked at the wires, couldn't see anything. So we call up. So my buddy Jimmy Tyler, he calls up his guy at the Beta shop, and Gary, and says, "Hey Gary, had this really interesting thing happen," and to explain the situation, Gary goes, The left steering stop bolt fell out. And we're like thinking, how could that cause an electric problem? Sure enough, my friend went and looked at the left steering stop bolt. It's gone. That allows the steering to go past the stop and unplug the voltage regulator. So that is why you have a good motorcycle shop, because you call the guy, he's seen it before because it's something that happens. And we had 3 dum-dums standing around the bike looking at it, and because it just slightly unplugged it, you couldn't really tell that it was unplugged, even though we did kind of look at the wires. And you don't really see the wires because you just see the voltage regulator sitting there. So that's the way it works. So back to, so this is what I'm thinking. Could you have crashed it hard enough to knock some wires loose, and you've got a wire that's in there kind of floating around? So in the KTM wiring harnesses, which was Husaberg back then, are not the best. They were really going with small wires and light wires, and they chafe and they pinch, and all of a sudden, if you have something and you do an impact and the tank flexes or the bars and it stretches a wire or does something funny, that can be the problem. So, and in reality, like kind of the way a bike shuts off, and this is the thing that really confused me, because we only heard the fuel pump running for a short time, and we were able to get the beta running by pushing the start button every few seconds. And that would like get the fuel pump to prime, but since the battery voltage was improper, when the bike was running, unless you touched the starter, it wouldn't operate the fuel pump. So it was kind of a little bit fuel pump-ish, but it wasn't, because the fuel pump, it was more of an electrical shutoff where it shut off kind of quick, like instantly. So RP has a question. He says, I changed the oil on my 701E today and found some thick, greasy substance on the magnetic drain plug and in the oil. Didn't feel like there was any metal shavings in the grease-like substance. So was the grease-like substance, sometimes those magnetic shavings, it's just where, how old is the bike? Because the newer the bike, the more common it is to produce some, we'll call them like iron filings. And when you pull out the drain plug, a magnetic drain plug, they'll kind of pile up. And if you take that like with a paper towel and squeeze it, it'll smush down to nothing. And it's usually pretty dark. It looks gray on the drain plug. When you squish it, it turns into something that's pretty black. So I doubt that is it really greasy? Because is it metallic? That's the thing. Is it actually sucking all the? Was there chunks of this stuff or globs of this stuff other than on the magnetic drain plug? Because that's where this it's the metal filings that are getting there, and the oil is just kind of sticking to it, and so it's really just the magnet stuff. So if you clean it off and smash it, does it turn into nothing, or is it actually like a goop that's independent of the oil? Is it something different than oil? But no, filter oil would not get in the engine like that. Filter oil would get burnt, especially on a 4-stroke. It's not going to work its way down in there. I don't know if there's a path, like a transmission breather. No, I don't think there's any way in there. And then, like, if you didn't introduce something in some weird, strange way, it's probably just metal filings that are, in a kind of normal to a newer bike. A newer bike, I mean one with less than 100 hours on it. So it should be fine. And Michael is an electrician. So that's the last thing from his mind. Well, I'm a motorcycle rider, and I don't like to talk about crashing and then blaming the bike for it either. But however it all works. So, yeah, 10,000 miles on that 701. That's it. It can still have the goopy stuff. I'm guessing this is the first time that you've done this oil change, and it's the first time you've seen this. Like, did you do it the last time you did the oil change? Because it's a pretty constant thing. And if you change the oil every 1,000 miles, you're not going to see as much as you would see if you waited 5,000 miles. It's just the magnet is doing its job and collecting the metal particles. And if it's truly is like a goop, like something different, my question is, what is it, and how did that get in there? I've seen globs of silicone, but usually they're usually on the filter screen, not on the magnet. But if it's on the magnet, I'm guessing it's iron filings, and I'm just normal. It happens every time I change oil in my bikes. I let my oil go a lot longer than most people, so I see this quite a bit. And your magnets and your filters are probably doing the job. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the other questions that I had on the other thing over here. I have, when I go do this show, I have a lot of really good ideas, but it takes so much brain power, which I have very little of, to operate this show that I forget some of the good stories that I was going to tell on the show. Okay. Todd has a question here. He says, last weekend, one of the boys, submerged a 4-stroke in a clean stream of water for 5 minutes. In your experience, what's the risk of steel parts inside the crankcase head corroding if you don't remove the contaminated oil or water immediately? I realize that you want to flush the crankcase multiple times with fresh oil and get the engine hot to vaporize any water, but can you let it sit for a couple of days? Okay, and he has another question here, secondary. So I'll answer the first one about this. It's what does Jimmy know about the oil question here. So if the engine's hot a lot of times, and it depends, like when it got submerged, was it running? Like if it shuts off and falls over, it's usually not as bad as when it's running, especially like wide open and it falls over, because there's less chance that the water's going to get in through the intake tract. And it's kind of difficult for water to get in through the exhaust, even when the motor stopped. It's a long path up there. If it's underneath water for 5 minutes, yeah, for sure it's going to start working its way in there. But when an engine's hot, a lot of times it cools down and it creates a vacuum inside the engine, and then it's going to start sucking it from places like the crankcase breather or the any type of the breather hoses a lot of times. And all you guys that love to tear all that emissions equipment off, sometimes that emissions equipment is your best friend in this situation. But anyways, so it'll get in there. How bad, the quicker you can get it out, the better. Would I let it sit for a couple of days? No, I would definitely not let it sit for a couple of days, because just watch how long it takes for a piece of bare metal to rust. And you're not so much worried about like the piston and things that are aluminum. You're worried about the stuff that's metallic, like the bearing surfaces. It's mostly bearing surfaces and things like cams and rocker arms. And a lot of these things have coatings that are pretty good at resistant. A lot of them already are wet in oil, which will slow or minimize the amount of the corrosion, how quickly it's going to happen. But if you get the water in there, and then in my experience, and I've proven this on both 2-strokes and 4-strokes, if you get the water in there and you get the majority of the water out, which on a 2-stroke means you don't have to worry about your transmission too much right away. Just get it out of the piston and the cylinder and stuff like this. 4-stroke, same thing. But the 4-stroke, it's going to get in the transmission. If it gets into the piston, it's going to work its way. A certain amount of it will work its way down into the transmission past the, it just seems like it always does. Sometimes maybe not, but sometimes it does. So if you're able to run it, and you're getting your motor, because the motors are generally running over 200 degrees, 212 degrees where water boils, the water's going to kind of boil out. It's going to take some stuff. It's going to leave some stuff in there, and it's going to take some stuff out of the oil when it evaporates and does all of its stuff. But you would want to get that oil out of there, and then do a flush or two as soon as possible. And if you get it up to operating temperature, you're probably pretty good. If it comes out milky, do it again. And usually it takes at least two flushes. So if it takes a quart, by your third quart, it's pretty good, and then I'm not too worried about it. Even if it's a little bit milky, it's not a big deal. There's more oil than water in there. You should be okay. So that's where you're at with the engine, where it goes. Okay, so the second part of this question is, how easy is it to bend the connecting rod if you hit the starter button or give it a hard kick without removing the spark plug? Yes, water is incompressible fluid, and in theory, you should bend the connecting rod, but can you generate that much force with the starter or Kickstarter? Wouldn't the valve overlap allow the water to escape? And he says, thank you again. This is Todd. So, yes, in theory and in practice, you can bend the con rod on a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke. And really what it takes, in my experience, is it's luck. Because if you have a shit ton, if you have a lot of water in there, you can't kick it, and it's not going to bend. You can't get the momentum and the inertia to do it. And on a 4-stroke, if you just run it through slow, because of that valve overlap, you're going to get most of it out. But if you aren't careful with how you do it, and in fact, I don't kick it. I would rock the bike. I would just start rocking the bike back and forth, where you're actually working in that overlap and kind of pushing the bike forward and back in a taller gear. Just rock it back and forth, And on some 4-strokes, the spark plugs are so hard to get out. I don't take them out. I just will rock the bike around. If the bike is upside down, again, put the bike in gear upside down, then it's easier for the water to kind of get out through the open valves. And of course, your air filter needs to be out when you're doing this. And a lot of times when you're doing this, it'll pump it out, and the exhaust may actually at that point be like an uphill route, so it's going to work its way out the intake. But you can maneuver the bike around. Sometimes lay it on its side, whatever, do this. And you can get it out. The 2-stroke, if you're just careful with how you do it, you can also pump it out. It's usually a 2-stroke's easier to get the spark plug, but you want to be careful because a lot of the water in the 2-stroke will go into the bottom end, and then when you get the bike running, it'll suck the water back up, and if it gets running and it sucks enough water up, that's where you're going to bend your rod. So, even on the 4-stroke, if you get a lot of it out and then you go to kick it, and you didn't really get it all out, you kick it and there's just enough that'll bend it. So it's possible. Generally the rods bend when the guys are holding them wide open in the river and they suck a good gulp of water in. If they can keep it wide open, somehow the water tends to pass through, but it's usually you're on it, they back off and they come back on, and it's just boop, and the bike just stops instantly. And that's what does it. So, Todd, that's my take. I've drowned my bikes out. I've never destroyed my bikes doing that, probably because I've watched other people do it. And I didn't have enough money to do those stupid things. Wait a minute. What happened on that BMW? I dropped a BMW in a river, and I don't know if it bent the rod or not. I rode it. Did he drop it first? I don't remember. There was a situation where it had to do with a BMW in a really deep river crossing, and evidently he got a new motor for it after all the scenarios took place. But I'm pretty sure I at least fell over once in the river with it. So maybe I have been a rod. I don't know. It still had one that worked because I know we somehow rode the bike out. Okay, so Chris Needle. Hey, quick note. We always give stuff away in the show. And if you are interested in getting some of that, you got to listen to the whole thing, right? And then because if you scroll through, you're never going to find that point. We have a segment called Rooster Endo where we give you, thanks to Moto, this is Moto's Rooster Endo, we will give you the person that sends in the bike that we're the most fond of, the one that brings us the most enjoyment, the one that we like the most. We bring that into the show. You tell us a little bit about your bike. You tell us, take a picture of your bike, send it to us. And so Chris Neidel which seems really close to this other name of this guy that asked this questions, Chris Needle. Maybe I misspelled it. That's highly likely, Chris. So, wait a minute. No, that's a different question. This is where I need a producer, someone to scroll the thing while I'm working on the show. So Chris sent us a picture of his bike. I'm going to try to grab that picture and put it up on the screen for you, if I can work these buttons. There it is. There's the bike that's submitted for Rooster Endo, and there's a really interesting thing about this. I'll tell you later. This is a 2021 KTM 150 XCW, has 85 hours on it. And Chris says, I'm always trying to do more with less. I wanted to see if I could make the 150 work for me. I've heard if I twist the throttle, it will make more power. This is true, but the 150 made no power in the low RPM. I've heard about this. So it's engine mods, 2-stroke performance, high compression head, and ERM retune dongle, a steely 8-ounce flywheel weight. This woke the bike up. It still likes to rev, but will pull enough off idle that keeps me happy and does not let me down. It's never going to be a bigger bore bike. It's never going to beat bigger bore bikes in the open country, but it's still fun to ride. I like clutching and working on technique rather on endless power. His other mods are bulletproof designs, radiator fan, or radiator guards, a radiator fan, KTM Power Parts handguards. He's adjusted the power valve. He's got tubeless front and rear, X31 front tire, Shinko 505 rear tire that is now shredded. He's tightened his spokes, he's greased his bearings, and his clickers have all been clicked. And the photo shows a fender bag that allows him to carry first aid, toe strap, tools, etc. That stuff is out of the way, and he says he loves the show. Well, since you're using bulletproof designs parts, that bike looks well protected, and judging by the dents on your pipe, you need it. This picture was not taken in his garage. That's a big plus. This picture is taken in a location that makes me want to go riding. That's a plus. And since Chris's bike, if he's in the comments, if he's in the chat room, because I told him you better watch the show or he might lose. Chris, you have to let me know that you won Rooster Endo, or you're not going to get the prize, because you're the only contestant tonight. I say this bike roosts. I'm seeing that out of everybody that's submitted for this night's show, which is only you need that $100 more than anybody. Thanks to Moto, and they would have all kinds of things that you could put onto that bike and make it even better. Oh, and look, he's there in the chat. So you win. Chris, I'll reach back out to you through your email, and we'll get this thing taken care of. And now I'm going to answer the rest of the questions. I think and are you the same one that, Chris, are you the same one that sent in the list of questions? Because if you did that, then you absolutely earned the Rooster Endo award. So we'll find out here in a second, because there's a little bit of a delay on the show. So anyways, I think it's Chris, but there's a lot of questions, which actually makes the show go round, and I'm just screwing with my screen here. Let's see. Jimmy, he says, I want to be prepared to tow a bike with another bike. Can you give me the basic understanding? Gear, strap type, use a carabiner, how to connect, foot pegs, bars, carabiners, knots, hold with hands, speed of travel. Okay. So since I am now getting to be more of an expert on this, although I don't like that I've become an expert on this, the best way to tow a bike is situation dependent, 100% situation dependent. So what I use, so there's a company called Tugger, and Tugger has a couple different tow straps. And they have a really nice one that's a really strong rope, and it has a metal ring on it, so you can kind of loop it around things. And it's compact. It comes in a little pouch. I hope I said I had one, because I had one and I loaned it to the guys after I refused to tow the bike anymore, because it was strike two kind of a thing. And I distinctly remember him holding it up, and he says, I'm going to go buy 2 of these next week. And he held up remaining parts of my old one that had obviously gone through sprockets, disc rotors. I don't know, but it had been tied together a few times. It looked like it had taken a beating, but it's a nice, small, compact one. There's these other things called toe downs, which is another interesting idea. They're a kind of a tie down sort of strap, but pretty compact, and they have loops in them. And they're smaller than regular tie downs, but if you actually towed it to someplace where you needed to put it in a truck, you could use these as tie down straps, which can be advantageous when you're getting a civilian to tow you out or put your bike in the back of the truck or do something like that. So just a couple of things. So this is the equipment I use. It's either the tugger strap or the tow downs, I think they're called. And how do we tow? So usually if I'm in the open, I go foot peg to foot peg and I tie it on my bike. So I'm always towing the person. I'm never on the bike that's being towed. So the person that's pulling, you tie it to the foot peg or you loop it around your foot peg. And so if you put it on your left foot peg, you tie it to the person's right foot peg. But you don't tie it. You wrap it around the foot peg and have them keep their foot on the strap. So if their foot comes off the strap, it pulls out. So if they begin to crash, generally when they crash, their feet come off the pegs and they don't take you down with them. And you just have to ride in a manner so that person doesn't kind of come into your back wheel. You kind of want to stay a little bit staggered. And it's going to pull each of you kind of in together, but it ends up working. So that's the best thing. And Tim Wharton from Baja Bound says he doesn't like being connected, so foot pushing is the preferred method. Well, I actually agree with that. I like foot pushing too. And I wonder why it looks like our restream is stopped. I noticed the chat is being very slow to hook in. So I like that. So what Tim's talking about is you ride behind somebody and you push on the muffler of the bike and you give them a push that way. But anyways, if you're going to go really long distances, that can be a little bit tiring as well. So foot peg to foot peg is one way. But if you're in tight trails, places where you're turning around things, that doesn't work. It's really hard to go around turns. And then you have to raise up the towing method. So my other method is I go from my muffler, so the pulling bike, I go from the muffler mount, because that's usually the highest, most secure mount that I can strap to. I tie it to that, and then it goes back, and I try to run it straight through the center of their handlebar. So if I can get it between the bar clamps and I just push it through there, and then we usually take it up and maybe do a lap around the crossbar or whatever is there, and then run it over to the grip, and then same thing, just have it. I don't even think we don't do laps around the grip. We just put the strap through and have them hang on to it. So again, they can let go if they become uncomfortable, they start falling off the bike, because like I said, don't want to be too connected. The thing that the rider that's towing has to be very, very aware of, and evidently some people can actually tow for a long time even when the person they're towing is no longer behind them. I heard about this. Remind me of these stories when the other Jimmy is on here, because I forgot to get the proper answers that I require when strange things happen. So it's I always hook it up in a way so that because when you're pulling, when you're guy in front, you should feel the load and you should know what's happening. I imagine if you're going downhill, it's a little bit harder. But here's the other key to this whole ingredient. The person on the pull bike is the power, and the person on the bike being towed is the brakes. And so since they can see the string or the strap or whatever you're towing with, anytime there is slack in it, they need to take that out. Or they should always put a load. Generally if you're pulling uphill, there's going to be a load on it. But when you start going downhill, they need to be dragging their brake or doing something so that they keep tension in that rope, because you don't want to have to constantly snap and pull. So, word of the wise, hopefully your buddy that breaks down is a good rider or they're going to take you down. So those are the ways I do it. Those are my tips and tricks. Hopefully that answers a few questions. That's what we do out in the wild. And then whoever broke down that requires the towing, they get a strike against them. And the strike is kind of like what I'm going to get right now. I'm going to have a strike of Addictivo whiskeys. This is a whiskey made by a tequila company, one of my favorites. Luckily, I have a whole brand new bottle in the office. So, cheers, and that's how you tow. Anybody have any? Wow, I got a comment. It says, "This is a great subject, Jimmy. Solid advice." And that is a great whiskey and a solid taste. If you notice up on the screen behind me, there's a lot of sponsors scrolling up, like Climb. Climb makes awesome gear. If you're riding this time of year, at least in this hemisphere, they make the Mojave gear. It's like not wearing gear at all because it's like vented. It just blows right through, and it's really cool and comfortable. So if you're riding right now, you want the Mojave gear, and don't forget about some of their underlayers. They have really good technical underlayers that can make you more comfortable. Socks, for instance, they have a very thin sock that's super nice in the boots when it gets hot. So that's one of our sponsors. Also, Bulletproof Design, Seat Concepts, Moto, who brought you Rooster Endo, and Chris Needell was trying to spell his name phonetically, which I can barely even read, so you're lucky I said phonetically proper. I need to get Logan in here to do that stuff. On to the next question. And there's the other cool thing about the Addictivo is that I have one more. I have a bonus shot up in the top, the cap of the bottle. So the things you know, the things you learn. I need that thing. I wonder if my show will actually play this. Oh. Did anybody hear that on the audio output? That's my ringtone, by the way. Okay, so Jimmy, what are your thoughts on carrying extra parts on a ride? I had to walk out once due to a broken master link. Now I carry one. There are other parts that you think are worth carrying, brake levers, shifters, etc. It really depends on this. Again, it's very situational on the ride and stuff like that. I hate carrying stuff. In fact, I've kind of gravitated more towards running saddlebags and stuff and getting things off my back or trying to connect things onto my bike. So a lot of my bikes have attached to them someplace. These are the things that I have on there. A master link and a small couple pieces of chain. So when I break a chain, when I'm putting a new chain on the bike and I have those extra 2 links, those are stuck on my bike someplace. And they're usually wired onto someplace, kind of inconspicuous, but I know where it's at and I can get to it. A lot of times, the chain guide right above the case saver and stuff is a great place to just set a couple extra pieces of chain, for instance. And there's a lot of room sometimes behind airbox covers or up near where the battery's at, different places to put this stuff. But that also requires that you take a chain braking tool. And there's a old school, really small one, not the big C-clamp tile one. It's just a little tiny chain breaker that's, it's about 2 inches by an inch. And you can wheedle a chain apart with one of those. I've done it. It works. So I do carry a Master Link a lot of times. I like to carry a shifter and both brake and clutch levers because I can usually stash them away someplace. And if I know the bikes I'm riding, a lot of times I have two, believe it or not, 2 to 3 different like backpacks, and so those are small. They don't take much. They don't take much weight. Those are can be in the backpack. The other things I kind of carry is when I go on longer rides, I carry a fuel filter, a fuel injector on fuel injected bikes. And then I make sure, again, every time I talk about carrying something, I make sure I have the tools to be able to install it. And the way I know this is when I practice with my toolbox, or I work out of my backpack in the shop to make this stuff work. So this is the best way to know that. So you have to make sure if you have the fuel filter, you have the right kind of clamps. I carry a capacitor with me all the time, because when batteries fail, sometimes bikes don't run without a battery, and if the battery actually breaks, like a cell breaks or it catches on fire, all these things I've seen, I have a capacitor that I can replace the battery with and usually get that bike running. Sometimes we'll actually hook the capacitor into the system, use another battery to get that bike started, and then the bike with the problem will run. So a capacitor, there's lots of, you can check those things. I'm sure Moto sells one, but you can also, there's advice on how to build those on the internets. Other things that I carry, I have a small selection of nuts and bolts. I usually carry some small and big zip ties, and let's see what else is in there. And it's different. From bike to bike. I remember we used to have a second throttle cable, attached to your good throttle cable, just there as a spare, because things like this broke all the time. Different, you kind of knew back then what would break. You'd have an extra clutch cable that was already routed where it needed to go, just sitting there, and you would just disconnect the one that broke and hook the other one in there. Those days are kind of gone, because I can't remember the last time I've actually broke a cable, even if it was made in China or wherever they make this stuff these days. I saw a post, speaking of when I was looking at one of the groups someplace, and someone was really concerned that all of the KTM motors are now going to be made in India. Where do you find these rumors? Where do you find? And the question I want to know is, they're made in Austria. Where do all the parts come from that come to Austria? Where do those come from? Because I'm sure they come from all over the place. And it doesn't make any difference as long as wherever they're being produced, they have a good quality control guy. Do you think your Japanese Honda or your Japanese, I can't say anything bad about Yamaha because they sponsor the show, but your Japanese Kawasaki, do you think that thing's built 100% in Japan with Japan-made parts? No way. No way. So don't worry about KTM outsourcing to India. I don't think it's too big of a problem. Okay. Next question. Thank you, Chris. Jimmy, what sort of stuff do you think I should be carrying on a day ride in the mountains? Currently, I'm taking first aid, safety wire, multi-tool, toe strap, knife, tools, a tampon, and a master link. Well, it's funny because the first thing I talked to, because my Captain Safety Larry, he's been on the show before. He said tourniquet. He thinks that probably the biggest, because if you really run into a gnarly situation, it's probably going to involve bleeding, and a lot of it, tourniquet. And then the other thing, like what the tampon is for, I don't have a women's hygiene product sponsor, so if anybody wants to reach out on my behalf, I'd really appreciate that. I think might help. You're thinking of blood clotting stuff, and there is specific stuff for this. There's a gauze, a specific first aid gauze that you would stuff in, like if it were a cavity wound. And something like this, when you didn't have to use a tourniquet. Tourniquet's last resort. That's life or death. But anyways, this is kind of stuff that you learn in a wilderness first aid class, which I have not had personally. I've had people help me with understanding some of it, but just the basics. Stop the bleeding is the thing. So thinking about that. But yeah, first aid kit. Think about tourniquet. They're inexpensive, and don't leave it in its package. Take it out and see how it works, and kind of have it looped so you can slide it right over a limb if you needed to. Because that 20 or 30 seconds it takes you to fumble with that thing, you should have that done, and then package it back up like that so you can open it up. It's a loop. You can put your thing through whatever you need to put it through there, and then go from there. So first aid, yeah, little stuff. If you're riding with people that are allergic to stuff, kind of be concerned about that. I've heard some stories about stuff people take. I was going to make another joke. Stay away from it. But safety wire is always good. Yeah, safety wire, zip ties, the multi-tool. So Motion Pro makes a couple of really trick little tools. They make one that's a little tiny T-handle set, and the other one is the MP tool. We have see if I had a freaking producer, I'd have him click the link and show you the MP tool test on dirtbiketest.com right now. Those are the two little things that I carry almost all the time. I've added a couple different sockets, and thank everybody for adding stuff into the chat right now. I see a few you guys are putting up some really good information about the combat touring, the Israel Trauma combat gauze, and the combat application tourniquet. CAT is the best one on the market, can be applied to yourself. So I think that's the CAT one. I think that's the one that I have, Michael, in a couple of my bags. But back then, yeah, toe strap. If you're riding by yourself, you don't need a toe strap unless you want to hang yourself. Yeah, toe strap, tools. Yeah, that's the multi-tool. That's the MP tools are kind of all my tools. Knife, tampon, master link. Yeah, those are all good things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I kind of carry. That the capacitor nowadays is kind of a good thing. And I can diagnose most of the electrical stuff without thinking that I would actually need some sort of a multimeter or anything weird like this. Everything's getting a lot more electronic, but those are kind of. I used to carry spark plugs. Sometimes I do carry a spark plug. It's been a long time since I've carried a spark plug. Even when we're testing two-strokes, I don't go grab a two-stroke spark plug like I used to back in the days. And I run Moose a lot of times, so I'm not really carrying the tubes and all the tire changing stuff that I used to carry with me. But when I am going for long rides and there could be failures, that's what those little saddlebags, the smaller saddlebags, are for. So that's the answer to those. Mark Daniels there. Yeah, MSR Quick Steel Putty. Hey, cheers, Mark. It's not tequila, but it's whiskey that came out of a tequila barrel. Yeah, Quick Steel. I was also thinking, like, the other thing is the JB Quick. Sometimes doesn't travel as well, but it's a little easier to mix, and in all the years of practicing with this stuff, I've learned to mix it to go really fast. Oh, hold on. I got to take a call from my bartender. Good evening, Janie. Welcome to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday.
Oh, hi. God, I forgot it was Tuesday.
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
Hi,
that.
everybody.
Yeah, welcome to the show. I had to pour my own whiskey tonight.
You poor thing. You were just so deprived.
That's tragic.
On that happy note, we've got $1 off at Hideaway and Montana.
Oh, good.
And he'd rather bypass Arnie's because Deb has her own thing going on.
Okay, is this the kind of stuff that we should be telling everybody on the Tech Talk Taco Tuesdays about my beer drinking run club this weekend?
Yes, because you branch out from tequila.
Okay, well, if everybody wants to go running with me, we're gonna do a little run. It's my drinking club with a running problem. And everybody asks, like, why would you run away from perfectly good beer? Well, because there's running to do, and we're gonna run all over town that's on our feet, by the way. I know I don't look like a physical specimen that should be running, but I will do it. But anyways, okay, Janie, thanks for the update, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. And be sure and mention your Death Valley beer mile. That was pretty impressive.
Oh, people will just search that on the internet. It's a world record, so everybody knows about it. Okay, talk to you later.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Okay, too much information on that particular phone call. Lona Azul Tequila. Are you looking for a recommendation, or I had some of that earlier, or that's what you're having? And okay, get back to the show here. Let's see. So now I'm completely distracted. Too many buttons to push around here. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them up in the comments. If you're listening to this on a podcast right now, you can actually watch it live every Tuesday night, or every Tuesday night that I remember how to turn the show on. We do this show, and then you can do comments. If you comment on the YouTube video, we usually go back and get those. I'll do that in a little bit and answer your questions in the next show. And when you send me an email, which I really appreciate, it's Jimmy. It's my name at my website, which is dirtbiketest.com. You send emails there, and you can ask questions that way as well. And I usually get back to you, and I say, I'll answer that on the next show, because I like to really, I have nothing to do during the week. I'm kind of bored, and I just sit around all the time, and I don't have anything to do, and I want you to really stress out when you know that I could be actually answering your question, as opposed to waiting for when I'm doing my 2 hours of penance on this particular show. Big shout out to the I have a hard time saying this, the Fuck You Racing crew, supporting Dirt Bike Test, and they've been giving me stickers for a long time because I said please and thank you, because that's what you need to do. And probably pretty soon there's going to be the Good Team with a Bad Name t-shirt coming out to support their ISDE team. They always sponsor, or recently have been sponsoring ISDE club team. We got some pretty hot young American riders on that team, and they always have a really good shirt. I think I saw a preliminary design. It might be out there, but yeah. Keep in touch. Reach out, and we can answer your questions. Okay, going back to the questions. Now my bartender's in the chat, so if you want to learn how to pour a proper drink, and or come to Prump and visit a bar that she used to work at, you probably get a bar tour. Pretty good. I didn't really realize I needed a bartender, but when you move to Prump, that's something that you might need out here. Got a question about carrying gas. So, I have a stock tank, and I need extra gas a few times a year. Not enough to have to deal with a big tank in my face all the time. I was thinking of getting one of those fuel bags or strapping a 1-gallon jug to my back. What's your thoughts on this? I feel you. As a guy that pretty much every ride we go on is, we call them big tank rides, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it when I hop on a small tank bike. And just because usually I'm going to do small tank ride, the bike's so much more maneuverable, so I totally get it. Some of the tank, and it's funny because the tank manufacturers are really struggling with this, and I'm pissed off at you people because you keep wanting smaller and smaller tanks, not only on your bikes because you don't ride enough, but even on your longer range bikes because you still don't ride enough, and they're stopping making the 5-gallon tanks. We need them to make a 5-gallon tank and then something in between stock and 5 gallons. But don't just give me an extra half gallon so it can go that extra 20 minutes at your Grand Prix, or it can make that extra half lap at a GNCC. You pansies, get out there and put some mileage on and take it in the nuts for numb nuts here. So, but anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, you want to know about gas tanks. So in the situation when my 5-gallon tank is not enough, so I know your stock tank and just a little bit of gas, and you want a little bit more. When my 5-gallon tank, I carry a 1-gallon gas bag. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's not a gas bag. It's a bladder. And I carry that. It comes from Giant Loop. I think they have a kind of separate business, side business. I don't know exactly what they call it, but they have it's a really robust fuel bag. No, it's not a fuel bag. It's a liquid carrying device. And I fill it up. I go to the first chance I can get rid of it, and I get rid of it because I don't really want it around. And then I can roll it up into a little tube and just stuff it in my backpack, and I don't know it's there. So, yeah, it goes on my back, and when it's gone, I don't know it's there. So I got to turn this off because it's probably going to get crazy now. So that's my I would not carry a gas jug. and I would not a gallon and not a gas. We've done this before. We used to carry pre-running. We used to carry like laundry detergent bottles on our hips, on our fanny pack, and everything like that. So I've done it all. I'm not saying very smart, but it worked. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I rode too close to a bush and poked a hole in it and sprayed on me. And but yeah, Mark's comment in the chats, they have 1, 2, and 4 gallons. And trust me, the 2 gallon is too big. You don't want it. And the 4 gallon, you might as well just be on a UTV. So, and we have gone on. So the other thing is when I'm on my adventure bike, a lot of times I do have a 2 gallon one, and I will strap it on top of the pannier. And usually I'm riding with other guys on those when I need that much gas. And it's usually not for me because I put bigger gas tanks on my bikes. We usually take it off as soon as possible and pour it. We spread it around the gas tanks. So, you kind of spread it out knowing that if you had to, you can, if it really becomes problematic, you can get gas back. The other thing I carry with me a lot of times now is I carry a fuel hose that'll transfer fuel. So it has the male end that clips into the fuel line on my bike, so I can transfer fuel out of my big, super huge Valdez-like tank into my buddy who came up a little short. So that's on that one. Next question. Do we have any in the chat? We got any good questions in the chat? I'm checking over here right now. And there's a comment, very biased comment, says bartenders are very important people. So it's the Armadillo fuel cell. Says Mark. So we're getting some help there on this. So the next question is on spoke tension. And the question is, do I need a spoke torque wrench, or can I just listen to the sound, feel of each spoke, like I've been doing for years before I've even heard of a spoke torque wrench? Well, no, you absolutely cannot do it without a spoke torque wrench, because Fasst Company, the makers of the Flex handlebars, are a generous sponsor of this amazing podcast with millions of listeners. And so since they make a spoke torque wrench, the best one on the market, there's a couple knockoffs, not nearly as good. And I'm actually being honest with you, not nearly as good. There are some other, there's some knockoffs that are not nearly as good. They go out of tune pretty easy, and I don't trust them because they just don't feel right. Because I've had cheap ones that I've thrown in cheap toolboxes, and they go out. And I pull my Fasst Company out, and I check it, and I'm like going, oh, wow, this one's either letting me tighten them too much, which is really bad, or they're not tightening enough, and I just go, this doesn't feel right. So Fasst Company torque wrench has always been spot on. Can you do it without it? Absolutely. Absolutely you can do it without it, except that they're a sponsor. I would never, say that out loud. But the sound thing is, it takes a lot. I mean, you have to, I think you'd have to make some mistakes, like somebody I know, that you'd have to make some mistakes in tightening spokes to understand what the right sound is. It's more of a feel. It's when I'm tapping my wrench on the spoke and hearing that sound, I'm probably more so feeling the rebound on the wrench, whether it's dead or it really springs back. Because you don't, what people don't understand about spokes is you don't want them too tight, because the way that they typically break is you land on the bottom of the wheel. Think about this. Get your, put on that thinking cap here. Hold on a second. Put on that thinking cap. Okay? When you land, you're pushing on spokes. Like the spokes on the bottom of the wheel, when you're impacting it, it's pushing on that part of the wheel, and they're actually getting loose. It's the ones on the top, the other side, where it transfers that load. Those are the ones that are getting pulled, and those are the ones that break. So the wheel's going to try to go out around, and it's going to try to pop spokes at different points, and that's why it's really important to have an even tension around a wheel. So a lot of times, I've seen people when they bend their rim, they go and start cranking on the ones that are loose right by the bent thing, and then they're over torquing, like it's really wreaking havoc on the backside of the wheel, because they go overboard on it. And a lot of times wheels right after they've been bent, if you go and tighten it right away, like you over tighten it right away, it wrecks the whole true of the wheel. It's really, they'll actually settle back in, believe it or not. It's kind of like in a way, kind of a self-centering device, the spokes. So yeah, if you want a little head start on that Fasst Company torque wrench, let me know. I might know a guy. I might be able to hook you up with a guy that knows a couple of things about that. And our next question, on to the next question. For all 27 million people that are watching, it's amazing how many people are listening to these podcasts and stuff. Like I said, if you have questions, throw up in the chat. That's what keeps this show rolling. Otherwise, I'm going to just go to sleep. But the next question is bleeding brakes. And the question is, Jay Clark says I need a $195 vacuum pump to bleed my hydraulic fluid. Is this true? Well, it is if he has a sponsor that sells a $195 vacuum pump, just like I have a sponsor that sells a very fair-priced, long-lasting, durable spoke torque wrench. But if Jay says you need a $195 vacuum pump to bleed it, it's true in his world. But I've learned some techniques in all of my years that mean that you don't need to have this bleeding pump. And the more time you have, the better for not having a tool. If you need to do it fast, the hydraulic pump is kind of the way to go. But in my experience, in all of my stupid years of doing this, and trust me, I'm the guy that's going to tell you how to do it the least expensive way possible first, or at least in one of the options, because that's how I had to do it. Every time I've had to resort to a hydraulic fluid pump or pumping the brakes with some sort of a tool, there was something wrong with my system, whether it be brake or clutch. Every single time. I've never not been able to quite easily, even whether I'm replacing a slave cylinder or a caliper, or I've rebuilt the master cylinder. If it's all proper, I've never had a problem just putting the fluid in and using some simple techniques. So simple techniques are very simple. Air likes to float up in liquid, and liquid likes to flow downhill. Okay? Just remember those two things. So when you have a hose that does a curly Q someplace, you can get it out. You might need a hydraulic pump, and I don't know why you have a curly Q in your system unless you have some stupid ABS system on some stupid adventure bike that's doing all this kind of stuff. And Mikey, I don't use the hydraulic the bleed pump to do my cable clutch. I promise. So that's the way it works. So I'll just run through the technique real quick. Actually, I should probably save this for an episode of Today in the Shop, which is the other podcast I'm going to do as soon as I get a producer in here that can actually hold a camera and then do all the other things they need to do. So, but in reality, there's a lot of techniques, like some back bleeding, so you basically, if with my brake systems, if it's really bad, I'll just start adding fluid and open the valve up, the bleed valve up, open it up completely, and just add fluid and let it just start spilling out. And as long as you can get new fluid to work its way all the way through, in other words, there's no obstruction in the system, eventually you're going to have mostly fluid in there. There might be some high spots where a little bit of air ends up collecting, but then if you close it up and then you back bleed it. And so sometimes if there's a lot of air in the master cylinder, it's hard to, you got to get that kind of purge so it can start forcing the fluid. You got to get that caliper expanded, or that clutch thing expanded, and then compress it back down, and that's going to squirt all the fluid out, and sometimes the air where it's trapped will get blown up all the way through, and then you pump it up again. It's a system called back bleeding. I'll demonstrate it someday and see how it works. And Michael says Thorogun works. Okay, hitting the line with a Thorogun. So, what's a Thorogun? Is that like a heat gun? Therapy gun, like a vibrator, are you saying? Because now we've had tampons on the show, and now we're talking about vibrators, I think. I don't know. I'm just a motorcycle racer. Don't blame the messenger here. Trying to keep things on the thing. So, Dot 4 is pricey, and bleeding the old-fashioned way seems to waste a lot of fluid. Man, there's so little fluid in there, you shouldn't really be wasting a whole lot. And like, you're not just pounding the stuff through there, you're just taking the old fluid out and getting in there. If you're just squirting it out on the floor, you're doing it, once the clean fluid starts coming out, it should be good enough to where you can start using this back bleeding method to get it all in there. Next question. It's almost time enough for that Trevor Hunter to call in. He should probably call us in and talk about racing motorcycles. Actually, he really should. Let me see if I can arrange this, because he's getting ready to do the Big Bear race, on the Big Bear dual sport race on his thing. So, yeah, Dot 4 is cheaper than a hospital bill, somebody says. Right. And a boot's cheaper than a cast. And then Trevor says he's coming in 5 minutes, so I'll answer one or two more questions. Storing a gas bike. For a carb bike, should I drain the bowl, run it till it dies, run additive in the fuel? Let's see. Wouldn't you rather just talk about which is the best two-stroke oil? I mean, come on. So there's 1,000 different ways to do this, skin this cat. Carburetors, and with our current state of gas is crap. It doesn't last nearly as long as it used to. I think we did a whole discussion on 100 octane low lead, and the reason they make that stuff is because it lasts a long time. But here's what I do, and here's what I recommend you do. So, 2-stroke or 4-stroke, I don't care. If it has a carburetor on it, hopefully your 2-stroke. If it has a carburetor, you're probably mixing the gas, but use mixed gas. So you don't have to put that much oil in it if it's a 4-stroke, but if you put like 80 to 1, 100 to 1, I mean, maybe even a little bit more, it doesn't matter. The 4-stroke is not going to care that much that it has a little bit of oil in the gas. Okay? Put some oil in the gas. Because of all the carburetors I've torn apart, 99% of the time, the 2-stroke ones don't have the problems that the 4-stroke ones do. And the 4-stroke problems come from the gas evaporating out of the carburetor, and then what I've been told is an algae growing in there, and the algae likes growing in little tight spots, and it plugs things up, and it doesn't do stuff. So I leave my bike. So I run 4-stroke gas in them. That puts an oil coating around a lot of the parts inside of the carburetor. Okay, it coats it with a little bit of oil, and that little bit of oil does a lot for preventing some of the buildup that you typically get. So that's number one. Is a fuel additive good? I believe that it's better to have the fuel additive than not have the fuel additive. The one that I found seemed like it did the best in kind of this test I did. I basically took a bunch of carburetor bowls, poured gas in them, poured a little bit of the additive in them, and just let them sit for 6 months. The one that seemed to evaporate the least and which was the root cause of the problem, and then when it did evaporate it seemed to leave the least amount of stuff, was the stable stuff. That's STABIL. So, all the other ones, can't really say I noticed much from just straight up regular gas. Having a non-ethanol gas can help as well, because what ethanol does is it catches the water. The water then goes, it separates, goes down to the bottom, and then when it all evaporates off, that water wreaks havoc on that thing and causes other stuff to go bad. So non-ethanol gases also help. Some of those additives also do something to neutralize the ethanol. I'm not a chemist. I just pretend like I'm one when I talk smart on this amazing podcast. With now we only have how many viewers did I make scare away with that? Oh, we got an extra million viewers with that thing. So I always leave fuel in the carburetor. I leave the tank. I have the tank at least halfway full. It has premix. It has oil in the gas, and if I can get non-ethanol gas, great. If not, there's a little bit of an additive in there to help it out. And then I leave the petcock on so that it doesn't drain out the thing. And I try to start my bike at minimum every month. And sometimes I go a little bit longer, but if you start it every month, you're probably going to be okay. All you have to do is start it and run it for a little bit. And really, when you run it, what you're doing more than anything is as well as splashing oil over the inside of the motor, which is not a bad thing to do too. You are sucking fuel through that pilot circuit and that idle circuit, the small circuits that tend to have problems, and it seems to help. If you can run it for just a few minutes, that's enough to get some fresh gas in there, and then the cycle starts all over again, and hopefully you don't have a bad cycle. So that's what I do. This is going to be the lots of questions show. All serious stuff. And we got another question. Bearings. This is on bearings. So this is our good friend Chris. Usually you have to pay extra for this. You have to donate. Like a guy gave me $10 last time on the YouTubes because I answered his question about maybe I made a joke about him. I'm not sure. So not a comedy routine. I'm going to finish this off. Boy, if I had a bartender doing it for me or a co-host that could talk while I was fixing this problem I have, which is now a serious problem because it's empty, except for what's in this cap, but it's more decorative. Bearings. I did some hub deep water crossings yesterday. Do I need to re-grease and inspect my wheel bearings? Hold on. That's good. Trevor Hunter, just in time. I need a co-host to talk for a few minutes while I enjoy my nice sip of Addictivo whiskey. Well, that's a wait. Hold on a second. Wait. Win the dual sport race ride?
I think it's a race. I don't know.
You kids, you better be careful. I don't want you to get the Big Bear trail riders in trouble.
I don't know. I think they should be the Big Bear trail racers.
No, when you get done with your race, you be careful. Why don't you just stick to crushing Coors Lights? That'd be right up your alley there, bro.
Hard alcohol only.
Yeah. It's really bad for you. I wouldn't suggest it. You gotta. I'm probably. Am I twice as old as you? Yeah. Right. At least.
Probably more. Yeah.
Somebody just texted or just put on the comments. Officially not a race, Trevor. So officially, you better watch your ass. So my question is so what time are you pulling up to the beginning of the ride?
Well, I'm not doing 3:45, which is what the first people did last year.
Because Johnny Campbell said he's not supporting you in this effort. He's going to be in Mexico.
I'm getting direct factory Honda support because my results in the race last year were so impressive that they're bringing the big rig and the big dog mechanics out this year.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, and so what are? I gotta see what these comments are coming in here. There's a up in Big Bear. There's a race up there. Aaron Cook reached out to me about his Big Bear Grand Prix race.
This is my warm up. This is a big race. That's a little tiny race. But,
This is the big one.
Yeah, this is a big one this weekend.
He sent me a picture of them riding up there. It showed one jump, and I texted him back and I said, I like race courses with one jump.
Oh, me too.
So, let's see. Oh, and somebody just posted up post. This is. Oh wait, did you post something up on Dirt Bike Test about this? No, it's Facebook. It's on Facebook.
The 300, the Works Edition 300L that we've got going.
Oh no, there's something evidently on Facebook's that it's something about Swap Moto Live and Swap Moto race accessories, and Swap Moto is swapping like super swap. Yeah, I remember that guy. I think we had a little tiff about helmets, me and that Don guy. Yeah.
You would say.
We're good now. I mean, he can't remember. I mean, I remember everything, but he can't. He knew what the better helmet was. Yeah. He was even one of our ding dongs, Scott Hoffman, they tried to do the $100 helmet, $100 head quote. If you have
did it like a week or two ago. Yep.
Yeah, $100 head, wear a $100 helmet. And I'm the guy that's done a helmet test, a full-on certified helmet test, and the last thing you need to be considering, like if you're that dumb to bite on that, is the price. The price of the helmet has nothing to do with how safe it is. Don't care. We can argue till the crows come home. There's a lot of other stuff. So, anyways,
I've seen you hit your head and be pretty fuzzy after not a huge crash in one of the more expensive helmets out there.
Me?
And it wasn't even a big crash. So obviously, I mean, as you said, helmets is designed for certain types of crashes and
one use.
Yeah.
Where was this? Can you remind me?
Exactly. Glen Helen, Yamaha.
Yamaha
Day.
Yamaha Day. Oh yeah, that was when you were first starting. That was a long time ago.
It's probably 2019, maybe.
No, it had to have been way earlier than that.
No. Well, maybe there's multiple then, but for sure,
Yeah.
like.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
So are you going? Are you coming back from the bar right now? Or are you going to the bar to get your training going?
I just dominated a mountain bike race.
Oh.
Preparation for this, so.
Dominated a mountain bike race. So which class did you sandbag in?
The first recreational cyclist.
Okay. Recreational cyclist. Oh, you mean the guy that's not sweeping in a hyperbaric chamber?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Oh, well, I'll take anything I can get these days.
I appreciate the discipline. Okay, so you are riding a Honda CRF 300L?
Yep.
Big mistake because Yamaha makes a XT250.
Yeah, but I got to. I got to sell myself out a little bit.
Is yours the Rally?
No, it's actually the shortened model.
The race one.
The lower seat height. No, the lower seat.
Oh, the
height
one for
model.
girls.
Yeah, Ryan Dudak thought I needed a smaller bike, so he gave me the low seat height one.
We are kind of short.
I mean, I'm not the tallest.
So you got the short bike. Make sure you show all the guys that you can put both your feet down on the ground. That's an important point in motorcycle selling point.
It's still a little bit of a reach.
You can't get your feet on the ground?
I mean,
what if you tip over? Oh man, that'd be horrible.
I'm gonna lower the suspension even more, I think.
Yeah. Well, just make sure you get that in the video. How you like to be able to, because that's why he's giving you that bike, because they're really pushing the selling point. Low seat height. Maybe you can just go in there and cut the seat foam too.
There's not much seat foam to cut, but maybe I'll just take the seat off.
Trevor, since you've been on the phone, we've lost 6,000 viewers on the show. It's amazing.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. So okay, what else you been up to? Anything good in dirt bike test world? Because it's been too hot to ride out here. You ride any bikes that nobody's heard of before?
No comment.
I did.
I did the 10-hour last weekend with the Husqvarna guys.
Oh, we talked about that. That's old news.
You did? Okay. What else have I done? just raced Marysville and GPC. Your old stomping grounds, kind of.
Oh, I actually used to do pretty good up there. East Street Bridge.
Yeah, it's a cool area for
Yeah.
sure.
Sand.
I like it.
Deep sand, or not anymore?
So the track we're on. It's not East Street. It's the one next to it, and it's more like you get in the riverbed. And it's all like river rock. It's not really that sandy. So
Yeah, you know, sand
unique,
sand is a rare commodity these days. It's like if you one of the scares they're trying to get us to bite onto is that we're running out of sand. And I just say, has anybody seen the Sahara Desert lately? I mean, I know Africa's kind of hoarding all of their wealth right now for the future, but be careful what you ask for. Chris Reel steps in and talks about fuel stabilizers are place a shield of lubricant that does not evaporate, thus slowing corrosion. Fuel system cleaners help dissolve deposits. Water is the issue that starts the corrosion on a dry surface. He was just trying to clarify all the gibberish that I spewed out when I said how to store a bike with a carburetor.
okay.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah. I just try to ride them often enough to not worry about it.
That was one of my rules. Start it every month. You're not gonna have a problem. I don't drain the gas. I don't run it dry. None of that stuff. So okay. So do you have your Trevor Hunter spectator zone set up at the Big Bear Trail Ride? Have you put it? Have you crowdsourced through all of your kitty? However you do this on your socials, where all your people are gonna go hang out and cheer for you.
I think kind of how the Lawrence brothers have their factory fan zone.
Uh-huh.
I think Honda's going to bring that out for me up in Big Bear this weekend.
Okay. We'll see if I can get that worked. I didn't know that was part of my job at Dirt Bike Test to have the Trevor Hunter factory fan zone.
It's I'm kind of a big deal, so I think we should have it.
I'll do my best to get that going. Yeah, and Jay Middleton wants to know, he says, what's the best way to store your NMF?
What's the best way to what?
Yeah, store your NMF. Actually, he mistyped it. He said NNF, but NNF when it's NMF, which I can't tell you what it is, but it's...
I don't know.
Yeah, the best way to store it, yeah. That's a tough question, Jay. We're gonna have to work on that one. But you can get a free ticket for that. Asking that question, I'm gonna give you a free ticket to the Trevor Hunter fan zone in the at the Big Bear Trail Ride, Big Bear Dual Sport Trail Ride. Hey, I was talking to a guy named Jerry Counts. Do you know who Jerry Counts is?
Sounds kind of familiar.
Okay, so when I was your age, there was an old guy like me named Jerry Counts. And so he was one of the original guys that was putting on dual sport rides a long time ago. And him and Larry Langley and a few other guys. And these guys were guys that were putting on races. They were putting on races when they started closing down the places where they could race. They figured out, hey, we can actually put on a dual sport ride, and we can still, because they were over racing. I'm going to get Jerry on the show because he's a real interesting cat. He does the Mexico to Canada dual sport ride, and he does a lot of different rides all over the Western United States here. But he's one of these legends that has been doing this for a long time, and he was telling me some of the history, which is pretty interesting. And so I would hope that some of you kids that are now enjoying a sport that he helped create, should learn a little bit about the history. So you can sound smart one of these days, like I pretend to be.
I'll start studying.
Okay, so I'll get him on the show. Well, you be careful at your dual sport ride, your dual sport, and honk horns when people get in your way. They like that. I know all the guys like it because
we're durability testing of the horn is our number one priority again this year.
Because Trevor, when I was young, I went and rode a GNCC, which is a real race, and I rode a real dual sport bike on it. I rode a Husky on it, and I raced in the morning race. And I don't like to talk about myself that much. I mean, only when it's important. But I overalled the morning race on a Husky dual sport bike. It was actually at Unadilla. And the kid that I beat, who was on a real race bike, he was a young twerp kind of like a little bit like you. He tried to protest me because the way I got past him is I waited till he came into a turn on this tight downhill, and I just laid on the horn. He jumped out of the way like it was nobody's business. I used the horn a little bit other times too. But I was quickly informed that it was a disqualifiable offense, and it's illegal in AMA competition to use a horn. So,
is it really?
Yeah. So I'm gonna check with the Big Bear trail riders and see if excessive horn honking could cause a disqualification.
Yes, but I'm also, isn't a horn
A required piece of equipment?
On the street legal motorcycle?
Yeah, but
mirrors, blinkers, everything else that I have and no one else has.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, your bike's going to be a true dual sport bike. Yeah.
Hey,
well,
Jimmy, should we? Do you want me to start up the bike with the Temu exhaust? We do a sound test on the show.
Oh yeah, we like hearing motorcycle noises on the show. So let's. Are you really going to try running that thing?
Well, you have to have an aftermarket exhaust on a dirt bike, right?
on a dual sport ride. Well,
dual sport.
Usually, it kind of depends on the level where you're at. But some places they just prefer to just cut them off, like in Pahrump. It's better just to cut it off, the muffler, because it's an emissions device. Just like every emissions device, you just throw them away, and then cut the muffler off, or at least cut it in half.
Well, this one might fall off, so we could get there.
Theoretically, yeah. Well, there's a lot of fire danger up there, so be careful. So yeah, let's give it a go. Let's hear it. Does it start up and run, or is it just pop and backfire?
It does it all.
Okay, great. Yeah. Oh Jesus. Oh, that is horrible. That's going to drive me to drinking. There's a couple more drops in my whiskey bottle here. I might have to eat the cap after listening to that. That's everything you don't want your small dual sport bike to sound like. That is. It sounds bad even on the phone.
It sounds so good idling on the stand.
Did you get a boner when you did that, or what? That's really bad.
Just thinking about it. I set my bike up to sound good and work good sitting on the stand idling, and this thing sounds great idling on the stand. So I think it's race ready.
Okay. Well, you do you. I'll just I'll pretend I don't know you when you cause some problems. But if you are at the bar crushing those Coors Lights afterwards, just pour one out for me on the ground. So.
Do you know if Chris Reel is going to be back this year?
He was in the chat a little bit earlier. I don't know, but he's usually up there doing sound tests, so you might want to avoid him with that thing.
I think this should pass. I think.
Yeah.
It's got a spark arrestor in it.
Yeah, I'll bet you it doesn't. I'll bet you it. Does it say USF Forestry approved spark arrestor?
I'd have to check the Temu exhaust or Temu website.
No, it has to be. There's it has to be on there with some very specific wording. That hey, somebody else just reminded me that I rode a BMW HP2. That's a twin cylinder bike at an Ironman GNCC. Yeah.
That sounds miserable.
No, it's not as stupid as doing a dual sport trail race ride, whatever, on a girl's bike that's low enough for small women. So, but hey, well, you go out and have a great time at that thing, and we'll definitely. Are we getting you in studio next week after this?
Are you gonna be able to pay the appearance fee? Because it's gonna be pretty high after.
I'll crowdfund it right now. In fact, when you what you should do is at your fan zone, walk around with a hat. And collect a little bit of money and see if they can get you out here. So
there we go. I'm like a professional racer.
Yeah, right on. Okay, Trevor. Well, thanks for calling in. You've wasted at least 15 minutes of this show's life, but I do it for a whole hour and 45 minutes, and people still chime in and listen. So we'll catch you out in the trail. Say hi to your how's your little brother doing?
He's hyping up how gnarly the crash was, how big the ruts were on the lip of the jump, everything, even though I rode the same track and there wasn't a single rut anywhere near that jump. So, but Keep him in your spirit, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Did they have to operate on that thing?
Not yet, but they will on Friday.
Oh boy. They had them all stretched out in that little harness.
I don't know what they're doing.
Ugh. Collarbones suck. Well, right on. Okay. We'll catch you in the future here. We'll get the race report next week.
We'll see you next week.
See ya. Okay, everybody, that was Trevor Hunter, our main allegedly dirt bike test guy who puts up all these videos where he talks about himself. And he doesn't talk about himself enough because I'm still better than him at that. So anyhow, Ed Santon, another definitely one of the guys that's fighting for our rights to ride. Ethanol from pumped gas. Gas causes corrosion. Use non-ethanol Home Depot small engine fuel. That's a good idea. The typing there, Ed, was a little suspect, but we'll give it to you. It seems like you had too many PBRs, my friend. Okay, so we're going to go back to this question about, I did some deep water crossing yesterday. Do I need to re-grease, inspect my wheel bearings? The answer is if your seal, your wheel bearing seal is in good condition, probably not. If you parked your bike in the water for 5 minutes, then maybe it can find a way in. But so the seal, that the lip that goes on the wheel spacer is sealed. The bearings generally are sealed, so it's pretty hard for it to get in the bearing. It can work its way into, through the axle sometimes. It can get in there, but very difficult. I would be more worried about it if you go deep water crossings. I would be more worried about your chain adjuster bolts, the swing arm, mostly between inside the engine cases, because that's usually not sealed as well. Lower engine mount bolts or low engine mount bolts that are in there, that the water's going to get in there, get in the frame, get inside the swing arm, and do some stuff there. I'd be more worried about that than wheel bearings with a properly assembled. And if you have that little bit of grease, like when they say grease the axle, a lot of times what's that doing is giving it a coating for corrosion protection, allowing it to slide in and out better. But it's also making it so that the water, it seals up some stuff, so it's harder for the water to get in, kind of like wheel bearing grease does in essence. So I think you do worse by pressure washing your wheel bearings, like I see a lot of people do. Next question. Oh, wait a minute. Got some comments over here. Jerry sold. He gave Jesus a roll tart to Jerusalem. He's talking about Jerry Counts. I could see that. I could definitely see that. That's a good one. You know what, Kevin? When I get him on the show, you got to bring that back up because I will forget. Oh boy, here's a tough one. Suspension setup. After the sag is set per the manual, what does it feel like to add more or less sag? I've seen Billy Bolt yell to his crew he needs more sag. What was he feeling? More sag. If he said, I want more sag, and he would say it with a British accent, and I can't copy that right now, but he wants the back end to squat down more, so he probably wants the bike to be more stable. He might have felt the bike being high in the rear and causing the front end to be maybe a little bit too precise or too twitchy or something like that. But what does it feel like to add more or less sag? Well, most riders can't tell. How do I know? Because I watch most riders never check their sag, and they ride around and they think it's fine. And then they say, I need to send my suspension to some guy or some company or some this. And I'm like, what's your sag setup? They go, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you probably should do it because you're starting from who knows, whatever. So what does it feel like? The best way to find out is to add more sag and take more sag away. So set it to the manual, ride it, take 2 to 3 turns out of the spring, ride it, put 6 turns back into the spring, ride it, and see if you notice. And if you don't notice, you are lucky because you can ride anything, and then you don't ever have to spend any money on suspension. So typically, if you add more sag, which means lower the rear end, so more sag means lower in the rear end, When you do this, it pushes the forks out, because you think about how the bike pivots, because the front end doesn't necessarily, you're not changing the sag on your front forks, which is a thing, but it kind of rolls it out so it choppers the bike out a little bit more, becomes stable to a point. If you take sag away, in other words, tighten that spring up and it raises the rear of the bike up, it kind of pushes the forks in a little bit. You're up higher on the bike. It puts more weight on the front wheel. The front wheel tends to get more traction. Although everything is conditioned on something else, but that's the biggest thing. Typically, when less sacked out means more chopper-like, up means more front wheel underneath you, and like that. And it's real particular to riders. Manufacturers have a recommendation that they feel like that's where their chassis was designed to ride, the height the bike was designed to ride at. And it's a really good adjustment to change the characteristics of the bike. Half the time when these guys complain about bikes, especially your new media guys that don't know the first thing. When I watch their videos and hear them talking about stuff, they don't know what they're talking about, and they're often regurgitating what they've been told. They don't have any feel for stuff. And they couldn't even explain what I just explained, number one. And number two, they don't even know what it feels like. And then maybe that particular bike doesn't have the characteristic that they're looking for with the stock ride height, sag, and they could just change it a little bit and everything would get better. So if you don't know how to go about fixing a little thing like that and are adjusting it, then you you shouldn't be testing motorcycles. So we've got a question coming up here on the live thing. It's man with gun, which kind of scares me, but regarding causes of clogged fuel injectors, a Husky FX 350 at 300 hours, I've had +4 on trail bog sputter issues that were always cured by backflushing the injector, even installed a new OEM injector. Everything in the fuel system is new except for the original external fuel hoses. Inline quick filter is not the issue. Also switched to an overpriced in-tank billet stainless steel filter. My two remaining theories for causing the clog are either the fuel lines deteriorated. Yes. Okay, let me just read that again. My two remaining theories for the clog are either the fuel lines deteriorated. I'm going to tell you that you're not telling me the year of the bike, but I'm kind of guessing with 300 hours is a few years old. I've seen, and it's intermittent on how long it takes, but yes, fuel lines deteriorating and creating debris from the California ethanol. Well, a lot of gas is ethanol, or the stainless steel intake filter can't capture the carbon debris. So he's talking about the carbon debris coming from the fuel pump motor and rotors and stuff like that. No, I'm going to go 95% chance that it's the fuel line and it's past the filter type. And let's see, as well as fiber type that is coming off the new fuel pump brushes. What say you? Well, hopefully I just said it. I've seen the fuel lines go bad, and it's believe it or not, the bikes that I've had that the fuel lines went bad in, at one time or another ran race gas. They had race gas in them, and so I don't want to blame the ethanol completely, because a lot of these fuel lines now are designed, and they've been designed for a long time knowing that that's in the fuel. So the race gases have some stuff in them that can be problematic to the rubbers. And I will tell you that sometimes a bike that sits for long periods of time and then gets used and then sits for long periods of time tends to, the fuel lines tend to get a little more brittle than a bike that's in constant use. But so yeah. And so where it's happening is past your fuel filters. It's in that little bit of hose right next to the fuel injector. So every time you're able to back flush that filter, it fixes it. Replace all the lines, and you'll probably be Good. Victor, as always, with coming in with the comments. If your bike is sagging too much, you can use a sports bra. Thank you, Victor. And cheers to that. So, Man with Gun, let me know if I addressed your concern or confirmed your suspicion. But it's funny. So guess where the other place I found stuff coming from was the chips of the when you're installing the fuel hose. I've seen chips of that fuel, the O-ring that goes on that male-female connection. I've seen those come off and get into the fuel injector, and I've also seen parts of the fuel injector corrode and come apart, and all this stuff. So, yeah. Anyways, I literally just had this experience down in Mexico, and the other thing that was interesting is I couldn't figure out why my fuel pump went bad, and that screen on the bottom, the kind of the big pickup screen on the bottom of the fuel pump, that had actually gone bad. It didn't appear bad, but if you pushed on it, it's like, oh, it actually has the screen was sitting where it was supposed to, but it wasn't connected to the plastic. And in 18, yep, there we go. That's about that. You're getting in the time period where things start to corrode. I think they're supposed to last. I don't know what it is. I think it's 10 years. There's kind of an emissions. When they did all these emissions, they mandated that the stuff lasts a certain amount of years. And I know it's 18, but we're pretty hard on equipment and stuff like that. So who knows? But awesome. Okay, back to the next question. Got another one. Springs. I'm running stock KTM springs front and rear. You should be riding a Yamaha. By the way, Yamaha, amazing sponsor of this podcast. You would not all get this all amazing information for free like you do without Yamaha's support. So next time you're looking at a bike, and since your stock KTM springs are not doing you right, your Yamaha would definitely be better. He says, I'm on the heavy end of the spec for the springs. I like the way it feels and have spent time with the clickers and preload, but don't know what I might be missing. Do I need to buy a spring where I'm in the middle of the spec? Does KTM think every rider weighs 155 pounds? Well, as a formerly perfect rider, person, everything, I used to be, 5'9", 5'8", 180 pounds, just striking. Full head of hair. Hard to believe right now. I was perfect, and that's why I got to ride a lot of bikes. But their bikes are set up in the 180 pound. Well, it depends on what size bike you're at. If you're on the 150, which I think you are, because that's the bike you sent a picture of. Yes, they think you're 155 pounds, maybe 135 pounds. That's what that bike's designed for. So let's see. I like the way it feels to spend time with the clickers, but I don't know what I might be missing. Well, if you like the way it feels, so here's how there's a way to check to see if the springs are proper, and that's by using sag. So there's what they call free sag, which is just the weight of the bike only. So you measure it all the way extended. You just put the bike on the ground, so it's just the bike's weight, and there's a measurement there, and then you measure your sag on the bike, and there's a measurement there. And there's a correlation there where if you can't get the proper sag and still have some free sag, so if you set your sag and you put the bike on the ground and it's topped out, in other words, there's no initial sag of just the weight of the bike, you need to go up a spring rate or 2, depending on how much, or 3. I don't know what you're at. But anyways, or if you can't loosen, if you can't get the sag that you want, and if you're really light and you're loosening up your spring preload and the spring becomes loose on the shock, then you're too heavy of a spring. So that's kind of the way to check if your spring's going to be right. Some people like a really wound down and tight spring, and some people like a really loose spring. There's different feels that you can get from that, but generally, for most riders, speaking for most riders, especially on a PDS bike, which I think your KTM may be. I'd have to check the picture. Let me check the picture real quick. Hold on. I know where it's at. It's in this. It's in over here in this thing here. PDS bike, yes. So, it's really critical on the PDS bikes, and having a tight or loose spring does make a big difference. I'm a big fan of the progressive springs on the PDS, where some people like straight rate, but this is all, you can debate that all day long. So yeah, that's what we have there, and I think I'm getting to my final question. You owe me a bottle of tequila, I think. I'm pretty sure you do. Strapping a bike down. Jimmy, when strapping my bike on a trailer, does compressing my forks about 75% of their travel affect the performance or longevity? My trailer likes the forks compressed quite a bit due to be sturdy. I don't think it's doing any damage, but it feels weird. Well, no, it's not gonna hurt your bike by compressing them down 75% of their travel. They're designed to, go all the way down. Does it put a lot of pressure inside of them? Yeah, absolutely. But it's designed to do that. If you left it in there for a few months, I'm no metallurgist, although I do play one on this podcast from time to time. I'm pretty sure that the springs like to retain back into their normal position. I don't know if the pressure over time would cause the forks to do something. I don't think the pressure on the oil is going to hurt anything. I would be more worried about your tie down snapping or something like that. I'm not sure, or bending your trailer. I would say maybe you just get a truck and throw it in the back like a man. But if you have to tow a bike behind your Prius or whatever in your trailer, that's cool too, because I like everybody that rides dirt bikes. Don't care who you are or what you do. So, okay, everybody, that's I'm gonna call it a wrap, because Victor got me all excited about wearing a sports bra if I sag too much. But we're gonna go down there. That was all of our questions. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share to a friend. Go listen to the podcast. Send the podcast to your friend that asks stupid motorcycle questions. Congratulations to Chris for the Rooster Endo win, brought to you by Moto. I'd like to thank again all of our amazing sponsors, Fasst Company, Bulletproof Designs, Seat Concepts. Lots of different companies out there. I know that if you're in the mood to buy something, you want some good products, the companies that we recommend, the companies that I pimp on this show, are good companies. They've been around for a while. They make good stuff, and I wouldn't talk about them if they didn't. Very particular about who we work with here and what we do. So thank you for enjoying the show. How many more millions are on here? Oh, we're back. See, Trevor went off the phone, and we're back up to 26 million viewers, which is really, really awesome. And thanks, everybody, for joining in. More than likely, we'll be back next week. I'm going to try to get some stellar guests. I'm going to try to find somebody to sit over here and I need somebody to sit over there and push buttons and make stuff happen, because it's complicated and I get confused. So, okay. Cheers. See you out in the trail. How do I turn this stupid show off again? Do this.